Hello, Revivalists. I'm Emiliana Martin, your host for Revivalist Conversations on the Revivalist News Network. I am so excited about this next conversation. Our next Revivalist conversation is in two parts. Part one, we meet Stewart Perrilliat, pastor at San Quentin Prison and prison ministry pastor at Allen Temple Church in Oakland, California. Since 1995, he's been ministering at San Quentin, California's only death row prison. Perrilliat is an urban youth advocate and founder of Man to Man, a program that aims to provide practical principles and resources to produce men who care and support themselves, their families, and their community. He's also a single father and a brand new grandfather. Over the next 2 weeks before Part 2 goes public, Revivalist royalty, known as Patreon subscribers, get exclusive access to Part 2 of my conversation with Perrilliat a whole 2 weeks ahead of schedule. I release it publicly on YouTube 2 weeks after this gets published. You'll also get special access to video snippets from Parts 1 and 2 I personally enjoyed and felt were very pivotal. These snippets won't be publicly available without a subscription.
When you look at any man, I don't care who you are, and if you really want to know who that person is, go back 3 generations and you'll find out. Find out who the grandfather was. Find out what he did. Find out what the father did. Even though you don't like that person, he's in your DNA, and that is the seed of who you are. And that's the positive part or the negative part.
All right. Hello, everybody. I'm Emiliana from the Revivalist News Network, and we are live with Stewart Perrilliat, who is a pastor at San Quentin and the prison's pastor at Allen Temple Church in Oakland, which is an amazing church. I have a bazillion questions, but I was just wondering if you could just kind of give us an update on what's going on in San Quentin with COVID. I understand somebody else just died yesterday.
You know, I was told as a volunteer, I'm not supposed to say anything about what's happening inside unless I'm inside. And so, but I do know that it is something that they're trying to get a handle of. There are several inmates that are what I am understanding at Marin General. I was talking to a guy in the line at the bank, and he was a nurse. And we were just talking and say, "Hey, how you doing?" He said, I'm good. How are you? And I'm doing well. And he said, "Man, it's rough, trying to get in the bank because this one particular area, not where we are. I'm actually in San Anselmo on the other side of the San Rafael Bridge. Mm-hmm. And there's one bank open. And so the line, you can imagine how it was because there's no
one bank.
Well, one Bank of America.
Oh, okay.
He said, we're really having a real major issue, with people dying. They're dying left and right. So I'm thinking he's just talking about the local.
In general,
in Marin. And I said, really? I said, they don't talk about that. And that's when he told me, he says, yeah, they're coming from San Quentin, man. And I was like, wow. And he says they get there and so they're what I've read was that they have broken, because I do have connections with people that writes for the San Quentin News Department. So they've written articles, which is published, and they're saying that they are now breaking into tents. So they have open space. And then they have those that are infected, rather than them being in the cells, they're in these tents on the outside. And then they, I guess by whatever condition that they are in those specific tents. And then once they are quarantined or they get through, then they are open back to the general public.
Okay. All right. Well, I really enjoyed listening to your interview about fatherlessness, and I want to get to that, but I want to start with life on the inside. Tell me a little bit about what it's like for people on the inside right now. Tell me about the Christian Fellowship in San Quentin.
Well, I mean, as you know, the prison is shut down, so nobody can come in. I used to go in there every Tuesday and meet with the inmates. But around March 15th or 16th, somewhere around there, they stopped all visits for volunteers and everybody. So the only people that are allowed to go in now is the staff.
And you can't use Zoom either, right?
No, you can't. Of course, you can't use Zoom.
Of course,
I
right?
actually have been reaching out to one of the people that I have been connected with in San Quentin just to get an update. He has been really, with meeting with different, the county, the public health department. So they're really working on it. But normally he would call me right back, and I'm like, I need to talk to you, because really I actually wanted to have a conversation with him before we met, to just find out what is the parameters that I can talk about. And he says, I haven't forgotten about you, but he hadn't called me yet. And that was like 2 weeks ago. And so
I wonder if he's sick.
I don't think he's sick. I just think that he's, of course, I can imagine, with the media and everything that's going on, they're getting ready to release not just San Quentin, but I think the state of California is saying that they're about to release like 8,000 inmates, because of this COVID. They're really trying to get a handle on it and to make sure that these guys are tested properly before they go out into the general public. And then you have the press that's saying it's because of San Quentin, and San Quentin is now trying to, tighten up and make sure that everything is kosher. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and that it doesn't really escalate any further than it is. One of the things you were asking me about, how is it in San Quentin? I've been, really actually ministering to the inmates in San Quentin since 1995, and I've been doing that from various ways. We started off, when I was much younger, playing basketball against the inmates, and then having the time at halftime to open up the Word of God and to pray with them and give them a message, and then close the book and then go back and play again. And then after the game, we were fellowshipping and, able to talk about, life and their experiences. But, since I've been ordained, I've been really actually ministering in the chapel. I always tell people the experience of San Quentin is always a blessing to me when I go minister. I'm always ministered to. They have a full-blown church. They have elders, they have pastors, they have a full-blown choir, they have musicians.
I love this.
They have keyboard players, they have drummers, they have bass players. And they sing. So I'm in there, and before I go up to preach, I am just so blessed and full.
Lift it up.
I even go up there and I tell him, I said, you know what? I said, every time I come here, I'm blessed. I said, and this is the crazy thing. You all that are locked up are more free than the people that's free.
Yes, I remember you saying that. Oh my goodness,
That's
have ministry.
encouraging.
They have ministry baptisms, even though there are other religions. But it just sounds so vibrant. It sounds like what the church is supposed to be.
It really is, just the fact that, like you said, they have their own discipleship program. And so they have steps of, discipleship and how, to get a person converted and then walk with them rather than leave them at the altar. They get saved and say, okay, now you saved, let's go get the next person. But they actually walk with you through that process. And one of the things that I've learned in prison is that you're safe if you are a Christian in prison,
Yeah, tell me more about that.
So, even like if you're, a Muslim, they somehow leave them alone. If you're a Christian, they leave you alone. If you're in a gang, they leave you alone. So there's certain things, like if a person comes into prison and he really is lost, and if he's a Christian and he goes to the chapel and he meets people, then, it's like God is protecting them, and they have that protection inside the prison. And that's just not, and that's not just San Quentin, that's most prisons.
Right. Let's step into the fatherlessness piece. Passion Dialogues had a fatherlessness workshop. So as I was preparing the questions, I was letting it run in the background. And then it occurred to me, are prisons basically full of prodigal sons? Yes,
the prisons are filled with a lot of men that fathers have been incarcerated. And because these men have not been fathered, unfortunately, they find themselves in prison as well.
Are prisoners suffering from PTSD?
Absolutely.
How so?
PTSD is any real major traumatic situation that has occurred in your life, whether it's chronic or not. If you're in a place where you're confined in like a 5x5 room, and that is as far as you can go, and you are behind bars, and you've experienced certain things that you haven't experienced on the outside, well, then that is a traumatic experience.
Sure.
Prison is not a great place to be. But one thing I can say is San Quentin is a great rehabilitation center. I used to say that prisons didn't have rehabilitation. It's just a place that they become better criminals. But I can't say that about San Quentin because they can get a college education, they can get a trade. Many of those guys have gotten converted. Many of the guys that work with San Quentin News Department have gotten released, and they have 100% recidivism. Which means
explain that?
They don't go back to prison after they get out. And that's very rare, but they have a nice, group of guys that write the newspaper, and, they write their magazine, and they get help from Cal Berkeley, from professors, and they have a lot of volunteers that come in and help them write, and they're real relevant. They actually are journalists, but they're locked up talking about real life issues within the prison.
That's good. That's good. Why is it so hard for Black men to communicate?
Well, it's something that we haven't been used to. It hasn't been something that we practice. We was told not to communicate. We was told that just shut up, be quiet. Nobody wants to hear you, And so we haven't had that platform to share and to be transparent about where we hurt. We was told just, suck it up, be a man. Real men don't talk. You just, action, Where you would learn something like that would be from your father.
Right.
But if your father doesn't know how to communicate and doesn't know how to open up, then how would you know? This is something that you have to practice, just like any other thing in life. Is something that is not inherited, but it's something that you learn. It's a taught behavior. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Are all Black and brown-skinned men deadbeat fathers?
That's funny because that is a very stereotype quote, I guess. If you look at statistics will show you through the CDC that African American non-resident fathers are more engaged in their children more than any other race. And break it down as a general and national, it's like 4.4% that fathers have their children. And then I think Caucasians is like 4.5, 4.6. I can't remember what the number is. But I do know that African American fathers are 5.3%. Hispanics is like 4.7, So no, all men of color, whether you're Black or brown, are not deadbeat fathers. But the numbers are not still high enough. There's still lower numbers than it should, because if you look at single mothers, they're like, 48, 49%, that they have children. That they take care of. So we have a lot of work to do. But when you look at that number as a national number, 5.2, and then you think about what is it, 7.8 billion people on this earth, and then you break it down into the men, that is a huge
Big number.
Yeah, of fatherless children.
I want to talk a little bit about the self-esteem among Black or brown men. Talk to me about Richard Pryor and the N-word.
Oh, so
I really appreciated that story, so I really would like you to hear it.
You hear a lot of young men use that word very loosely among each other.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they understand
That's
where
much
that
better.
number derived from.
Did you tell us where it derived from?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a word that was used back in slavery. When you look at the conversation that I had with these young men, I wanted to ask them why were they using this name. What made them feel that it was comfortable to call another person that name.
Mm-hmm.
Let's have a conversation about that. And so they began to start telling me that there was different levels of how they use that name or different ways. One would be, this is my end, and it's cool,
Right.
Then it would be another one. If a Caucasian will call you the N word, then that would be very degrading, because they would put that and associate it with slavery. As you heard the young men and they were talking, but these young men were like 11, 12, 13 years old,
Mm-hmm.
So then I asked them, did they know Richard Pryor, which was a comedian that used that name quite frequently. But what happened was Richard Pryor went to Africa. And when he went to Africa, I don't remember the particular place where he went, but he never heard them using that name. And then I think someone challenged him about the name, that he said that would never be a part of his comedy again. He would never use that name again because he understood that was not a name that represented us very well. And so that's what I was trying to share with these young men, is that you ought to have enough respect for one another, not to call each other out of your name, especially a name such as that. And so that's really how we got on that conversation. You asked me why men do not like to communicate. And I believe the Lord gave me that talk show, Can We Have a Conversation? Because he said that you have a lot of angry young men.
Mm-hmm.
And when you see young men out killing and robbing and creating, chaos within the community and causing a lot of trauma in the neighborhoods or in the community, is because they want to be heard. They're angry. And so the way that they express that anger, because they don't know how to communicate, is they express it through, violence. And so the Lord said, but if you created a space for them to express that anger, then you would decrease that violence. And so we started a show called Can We Have a Conversation? And Can We Have a Conversation is conversations that are typically never talked about anywhere else but that show. And the realm of how we can communicate can be about any topic or any level, as long as we don't curse and we're disrespectful. And which is very difficult for them, because they're angry. The first thing they want to do is they want to curse. But now they have to refrain back from how not to curse and to really be able to articulate how they feel, which means that requires that they have to think. So those are the conversations that we have. And if you've seen them, I mean, we have various conversations about just about every topic, but this is causing them to be able to communicate healthy communication, and so they can feel like, I'm
a safe place.
Yes.
Why are gangs so successful at recruiting?
Gangs are very successful recruiting because they know how to find where you're weak. Gang members, they prey on the things that they see that you lack. And that is, in most urban communities, a lack of a father, the gatekeeper.
A male figure.
A male figure, a family figure.
Exactly.
Because if they see that you are down and you wish that you had a family, or you having issues with your mother, or you having issues with your father, then they come in and say, man, we your family. We father, man, we have you, we got you. And they believe that until they get locked up and they go to prison. Nobody puts money on their books. Nobody gives them visits. No one writes them letters. And then they realize that wasn't really their family. But it's too late now, because they're doing 25 years to life, And so, gangs, they know how. See, let me tell you, when we talk about fatherhood, This thing is so powerful because it's what really identifies many of the social ills that we deal with in our like 90%. And one of the key factors that a father does is that he creates identity. He gives his children.
Yes, I was going to touch on that, please. Yes.
And so, if you don't know who you are, and you don't know, if your father hasn't told you who you are, because the father, I use this a lot when I talk about the Bible and I talk about Jesus. Jesus really never operated into his ministry until his father identified him. He gave him his identity.
That's right.
The Bible says that John the Baptist, he wanted John the Baptist to baptize him. And John was like, no, I'm not worthy to baptize you. He says, no, you are worthy and you must do it. He said to fulfill the scriptures. But the Bible says that when he did it and when he came down and he came up, he heard a voice from heaven. And the voice said, this is my son in whom I'm well pleased. He gave him his identity. He says, I'm pleased with this young man because he's mine. And I'm going to give him his identity. He is the Son of God. So when that happens, now he begins. But before he even goes, and I watched this, even before he went into ministry,
20 days, woo!
In the wilderness. So just like he heard God say who his identity was, the devil heard it too. And the devil said, oh, really? If you are the Son of God, then do this. That's what happens in the streets.
And beat him back with the word.
Right. And so what happens here is because these young men do not know who they are, they don't have a foundation, they're not rooted, they don't understand their true identity of who they are, then they take on the identity of what people say they are. They say, okay, you're yeah, I'm a pimp. I'm a pimp, So he begins to do the activities that pimps do, Man, you're a drug dealer. You're a drug dealer. Yeah, I gotta make my money. I gotta do this because I'm a drug dealer. You a killer. Yeah, okay. You a killer. You want to join the gang? Then go kill that person right there. And not just guys. We talking about girls too. That's when the guy comes up, the pimp. Because he prays on the same way that the gang member prays.
Yep, exactly.
How you doing? And he sees that she's lacking in a few things. Says, I just want to buy you something special because you're so beautiful. And then he takes her to the store and he spends all this money on her to buy her all these clothes and diamonds and rings and all kind of stuff. And then he says, do you love me? She says, yeah, I love you. Well, just show me that you love me. Because she didn't have a father, she had a false identity of what love was. And somebody that told her what love is, she's so hungry for it that she just embraces it, and
she'll do anything.
Well, all these riches can be yours, right?
Absolutely. And then she finds herself in a place where she's trying to figure out, how do I get in this place? She's using drugs versus just recreational. But then the next thing you know, she's strung out or she's hooked on it. And then so in order for her to keep getting the drugs, then she got to work for it, And so that's what I tell these young people. Don't get nothing from the streets and think that somebody's just giving you something. They're not going to just give you something. There's a cost to it,
That's right. Nothing is free.
Nothing is free. I was just had a conversation with a pastor this morning, and he and I pray every morning at like 5 o'clock in the morning, sometimes 6. He shared something to me was very alarming to me because I am a father of a 14-year-old daughter. We have this.
And you're also a new grandfather. Congratulations.
Yes, I'm a grandfather too. I have a 32-year-old daughter who just gave birth to a son. So
congratulations.
Thank you.
Woo-hoo!
Yes.
That's good news right there. That's a revival right there.
Oh yeah, this is going to be very, very good. I'm very proud of her because, she's such a great child, even from, at a young age, and she graduated from high school and immediately went and got her bachelor's degree from Howard University, and she went and got a master's degree right after that. And I mean, she never took a break, and it was just clockwork. And
She was driven.
I only had to spank her one time, and she got it, and so this generation here, these other two, I've stopped counting. I got to find a new method.
You thought it was going to be easy the whole ride for all of it, right?
Yeah, especially when you first start off and you have this one, and she's just such a great kid. It's like, oh, you mastered it, because your mom cursed you as a child and said, I hope you get another one just like you,
and I got one just like me, and I love her to pieces. Yeah, so much for a curse. It was a blessing, 100%.
Oh man, I tell you, it really is. But this young lady was on social media, and her mom went out of town. And as her mom went out of town, this guy texted her, and then he sent her an Uber at like 12 midnight. And so that should have been a sign right there that something's wrong. But because, and this is what, the father piece is so important. Because, the first person who should tell you he loves you is your father.
Yes.
The first man that you should ever meet is your father.
That's called imprinting.
Absolutely. My daughter would tell you that every time she goes to the car, I open the door for her. And I told her that when you get to the car, and if you're going out with anybody, if they don't open the door, you just stand there and wait. You do not get in the car until they open the door for you. But these are things that you're teaching her, that you don't compromise. My daughter's there, what I'm talking about, the oldest one, she wrote a list what she wanted in her husband at 13. At 13, I said, if you can pick the things that you wanted in your husband, let me know what it is. And write it down. And that is how she chose the husband that she has today. So these things.
So she knew what she was looking for.
Oh, well, she didn't have to compromise.
Right.
If he wasn't on the list, then she didn't even need to waste her time.
Oh, that's good.
Beyond driven.
So the guy sent her Uber at 12 midnight. She got in the Uber. She went to the guy's house. And, these girls, they see these guys and he's so cute. He's so masculine. Oh, he's so built. So did you see his muscles? They get caught up on this social media and they see this and they get in the car and go to his house. And so he went into the room, and I guess they started doing one thing that led another, and they got sexually active, and then two other guys came in the room, and he gang raped her, and it was just devastating for her. And her mom wasn't there, and then so when her mom came back home, she asked, what's wrong? And she said nothing. She says, yes, what's wrong? She says nothing is wrong. And she kept asking her until she finally told her. And then so her mom called the police, and they filed charges against the young man. And then, the pastor said that, they stopped calling you. The people that was going to the church that was coming frequently, they stopped going to church. They stopped calling. So he was calling, people from the church was calling. They was trying to get in contact with her, and she just stopped calling. And they said all of a sudden, like maybe several weeks later, the mother called and was like, I really missed you. I missed your church. And he's like, where have you been? I've been looking for you. We've been calling you. And then she said, oh, you won't even believe. She said, we're on witness protection. The people after that, they kicked our door down with guns and they tried to kill us. And, she saw it on the cameras. And, all of this could have been prevented if there was a father in the house, if there was a gatekeeper, if there was somebody that gave this young lady her identity, and it pushes me because, see, young girls don't understand. They think it's just a father that's trying to be difficult and give them a hard time. But we see things because we used to be those young boys. So we understand what it is that you're heading down to. We used to know that, what to say that was going to make you smile, or what it was is going to get you to the place where you would want to do anything. So my thing is, I expose all that. I expose the whole playbook, but they still don't understand. So now when my daughter comes back to the house on Friday, I have to sit down and have a conversation with her, because I always tell her, I don't feel comfortable with you being in a room with the door closed and you just isolated with the computer, and you're isolated with, I don't know who you're talking to, and you're telling me you want to go hang out with your girlfriend, but are you really going to hang out with your girlfriend? Or are you going to try to sneak away and try to be with somebody else? And you might do that. But then I have to tell her the story of what just happened, because that could have been you, and I can't protect you if I don't know where you are. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the only way that I am going to be able to protect you is that you're going to have to be transparent and open with me and truthful with me, so that I can help you. I'm not your enemy. I'm not here to hurt you or cause you to be miserable. But what I'm trying to do is to stop a scar that would never be able to be removed.
Yeah, I used to say I would say to my son, and I got this from my therapist, so she's just freaking brilliant. But I would check in with him from time to time, and I'd say, "Hey, how you doing?" "Oh, I'm fine." "Would you tell me if you weren't?"
Mm-hmm.
And just sort of, establish that, hey, would you talk? And he always said yes, always. Mm-hmm. And so we have that relationship now where he will tell me anything, and I will not jump down his throat. And if you haven't already figured it out, I'm a single mom. His father died when he was 7. So I can appreciate having a father present, because it really made a difference.